Hey Lab Rats, this is Kendra.
And this is Jessica, and you're listening to
Lucid Lab.
We're back for lab reports.
Number 11.
This week we have 3 lab reports from our listeners and 2
Mini episodes.
So we're going to get right into it. We're just still in the feels of everything, so we're taking it easy.
As I think all of you can identify with, probably.
So I'm going to start first, and this one has a title that says, I don't trust men, and I felt like that.
It definitely resonates with what's going on in the world right now.
Hello, Kendra and Jessica. I am such a big fan. I can't wait each week for the next episode. I wish you could do more than one a week, but I know you are crazy busy mamas, and just know that I am thankful for what you can put out and that you do not shy from having important discussions. You cover all the bases, fun and serious.
Thank you for listening every week.
Thank you. It's still in the plan to
One
do
day.
more. One day.
We are still dreaming big, guys, so keep coming back.
So I used to live on the 5th floor of an old brick apartment building. It's one of those places where I'd exchange polite nods with my neighbors, but there was rarely ever more than a few words said. I'd always liked that quiet, unspoken understanding amongst the residents there. Until one night last summer, that silence became the backdrop to a nightmare that I can't shake. It was around 11 p.m. when I first heard the argument. I was in bed, half asleep. Muffled voices were coming from the apartment directly across from me. A girl named Sarah lived there with her boyfriend, Adam. They had only moved in a few months before I moved out. They were a young couple. I'd see them in the hall sometimes. Sarah would smile and say hello, but Adam always looked away. I never thought much of it. I only knew their names because we had this little apartment pizza event that I went to for a few minutes. I was heading out actually and saw everyone in one of the social rooms you could rent out and popped in. I grabbed a slice. Hey, free food.
Yeah, and it's pizza.
I'd go stock up a whole to go for myself. They were next to me at the table and we introduced ourselves. I left just a couple minutes later. I didn't actually want to know anyone.
Just wanted food.
But they seemed normal enough. But this is proof that you really never know anyone.
Uh-oh.
At first, I tried to tune out their voices. Arguments in apartment buildings aren't unusual. It went on for a while, but something was different this time. The yelling kept getting louder. Sarah sounded scared, like really scared. I sat up and started paying attention because something about it just didn't feel right. Suddenly, Sarah's voice was sharp and with no other way to explain it, filled with absolute terror. Adam's voice was even louder and more aggressive. Then I heard something that sent a chill down my spine, a crash, glass shattering, followed by a scream. And not just a regular scream. She was terrified, like something really bad was happening. My heart was racing. For a moment, I was frozen, unsure of what to do. I thought about calling 911, but of course, I questioned everything in the moment. Was I overreacting?
You're never overreacting.
No, you're not.
I feel like it's always better safe than sorry.
I heard more muffled yelling for the next few minutes and stupidly convinced myself that it was just a superheated discussion and I needed to mind my business. I'll never forgive myself for this because then there was a loud thud, like something or someone hitting the floor. Then silence.
Oh, no.
Too much silence. I waited a few more minutes before a gut feeling told me that something was really wrong. I reached for my phone, my hands trembling as I dialed 911. The operator answered quickly, and I found myself whispering as if the walls had ears. I said, "There's something happening in my building. I think someone's in danger. I heard a fight, glass breaking, a loud thud, and now it's just quiet." I gave them my address and apartment number and waited. I got up and looked out my peephole and just stayed there with my eyes fixed on their door. I strained to hear any sound, but still there was nothing. The minutes dragged by, each one feeling like an eternity as my thoughts raced. What if I was already too late? Should I go over there? Finally, I saw red and blue lights flickering on my walls through my window blinds. I opened my door a crack, just enough to peek out as 2 officers rushed from down the hall and knocked on their door. There was no response, just more silence. The officers exchanged glances before one of them started banging louder, yelling that it was police. Then I saw the night manager show up with keys and they swung open the door and I saw inside.
Oh no.
From where I stood, I could just make out part of the apartment, but there was blood on the floor and the walls that I could see, and by the deck sliding door, there was a lamp and glass shelves that had been knocked over, and I could see shattered glass all over the floor. I opened my door a little more and it creaked a little. An officer looked back and yelled at me to stay in my apartment, so back to the peephole I went. One of the officers went inside while the other stayed near the door talking into his radio. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught just enough Victim is female, unresponsive. Suspect has fled.
Mm.
How did he flee? He must have left right away before I looked out the peephole.
Yeah.
My stomach dropped. Sarah was dead. I stepped back from the door and sank to the floor. I'd heard everything, but I hadn't done enough. I hadn't known what was happening until it was too late. Around 1 a.m., I watched them wheel her out of the apartment in a body bag. Over the next few days, the building was buzzing with gossip. It was all a blur. I was in a petrified state. I didn't leave my apartment for 2 days. The police came to question everyone, but no one had seen Adam leave, and no one really knew much about them to begin with. No one had heard the fight except me. I told them what I could, but it felt like a drop in the ocean. Sarah was gone, and Adam was missing. They searched for him, but he seemed to have vanished into thin air. I still don't know if they ever caught him. I did call the department twice for updates, but was given the runaround. Life in the building changed after that. The quiet I once loved now felt oppressive. Every time I opened my door to see the apartment sealed with yellow police tape, it was a haunting reminder. I knew I couldn't stay there. I moved out just a few weeks after it happened. Sometimes late at night, I still hear the echoes of that argument, even though I'm not there anymore. I think about what might have happened if I had called sooner or knocked on the door. Maybe it wouldn't have made a difference. Maybe it would have. I can't escape the feeling that Adam is still out there somewhere. I'll never forget the sound of Sarah's scream and her sweet smile whenever she said hello to me. I'm just so tired of the abuse of women. I wish I could have been her saving grace, and I wasn't. I'm forever heartbroken. I made a mistake. See something or hear something, do something. R.I.P. Sarah, I'm sorry I failed you. Thank you for reading, ladies, and thank you for your show. Stay lucid and vigilant, Claudia.
Wow, Claudia. That's heavy.
It's really heavy.
I am so sorry you experienced that and that you are carrying guilt about that. It's not your fault. We don't know, you said, what's going on. And we can't assume every man is doing something abusive. And I've been in that situation. I think I shared on here about hearing the scream in my neighborhood and not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was over a year ago. I heard a scream twice.
Oh, that's scary.
Nothing ever came of it that I am aware of, but you really don't know what to do when you hear things like that, and you don't want to be the nosy neighbor. It's easy for me to sit here and say, you know, just do it, but I know I've been there and I didn't do it.
I know. I hear weird stuff all the time, and you don't know. And then your brain could play a trick on you too and think it's a TV or something else going on.
We never want to assume the worst sometimes.
We don't, but we know how things go. But don't live with that. It was not your fault.
No.
It's him.
Unfortunately, people like that continue sometimes in their cycles. So I don't know.
Well, Claudia, thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing and sending in your story. I hope it felt good in some way to share that experience because you're not alone.
If anything, you're carrying her memory on, even though you didn't know much about her.
Yes.
And she can feel that.
And yeah, I don't trust men, like you said.
I know.
And there's statistics through the roof out there that we don't even need to repeat. And this is what we do for a living now, or part of our living. No, actually none of our living, but this is what we do for our hobby. And we see too much of this. So we all have to be vigilant. And especially in these times now with what just happened with the election and more and more women are in situations potentially that are not as happy as we might have thought, like their marriages or whatever. And we need to stand up for our fellow women out there.
We do. All right. Do you have anything that's not depressing right now?
I am actually doing a haunted location today for my mini episode, but it does involve some murder.
Okay. I mean, I should just expect
it's just par for the course here. But yes, today I am talking on my mini episode about the Lumber Baron Inn, which is among Denver's haunted locations. And it's a big one out there. And not only does it boast a solid historic and haunted backstory, but it's also one of the easiest places that you could access if you want to go visit somewhere haunted because it's a bed and breakfast at this point and all you have to do is reserve a room.
And you had tea there.
Yes. I think it was, I don't know, our third or fourth episode where I talked about going and having my tarot cards read. It was when me and my kiddo went for afternoon tea and they have a tarot version. So
that's cool.
I have been here. I have not stayed here, but it was very beautiful and I would be down for staying here one day. Many of you who are into haunted places may be familiar with the name of the Lumber Baron Inn because it was one of 3 locations that was featured in the first season of the Netflix series 28 Days Haunted.
I think I mentioned that on the Amityville episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have not watched this episode. I should have, but
okay.
Election week, and I just didn't get around to watching the episode. But for those of you not familiar, 28 Days Haunted is where they choose certain spots and they spend 4 weeks there to use some of the paranormal strategies that ghost hunters Ed and Lorraine Warren use to see if they can find more than like what would typically come out of, a 1 night, 2 night stay.
Right. The ghost might be taking a break that one night you're there.
He was tired. He haunted the people that were there the night before you, and it's his off day.
Right.
So if you see a picture of this house, it looks like something that would typically be a haunted house. Like it has the Queen Anne design to it, and it's a large mansion that was later converted into a bed and breakfast, which is what it is today. So it fits the mold. Just driving by, you're like, yeah, I could see that being a mysterious and haunted place. And then there's also an unsolved murder that took place, and that has led to many of the legends and was the main thing that the 28 Days Haunted episode focused on, was that one story.
Yes.
The Lumber Baron Inn is situated in what is called the Potter Highlands district of Denver. And this neighborhood has a unique beginning that I wanted to discuss before getting into more about the actual house. So situated on a hill northwest of the South Platte River and overlooking the city of Denver are the Highlands. This is an area that is very populated today. A lot of young singles are over there. And it is a really cool view because you can look right down into downtown Denver. So you can go sit on like rooftop patios, all of that.
Yeah, lots of restaurants.
Yes, it's a really cool area. It's actually one of the places I visit most because it's away from the downtown chaos.
Right. Yep.
Interesting enough, the Highlands wasn't just a district of Denver. It was its own city when they incorporated it in 1875.
Oh, okay.
And the Highlands had high aspirations when it was formed. They were touting that they had clean air that was high above the smoke and industry that was going on at the time down in Denver. They had cleaner water than Denver. And most importantly, they had clean morals. So they were building this Highlands as kind of a utopia of sorts.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Liquor was not explicitly forbidden in the Highlands, but liquor licenses were so expensive that basically no one could afford to add bars and everything. So it was like this kind of area that holier than thou types were starting back in the days.
And now it's nothing but posh bars.
It's where everybody goes for a good bar. So Ruth Eloise Weiberg points out in her book, Rediscovering Northwest Denver, that Highlands was to be a perfect Eden, a utopia. The people of the town were very proud people. They were proud of their homes, and there was to be no dirty industry in their town. The men were to earn their living in Denver and then return at night to the quiet, clean atmosphere of the Highlands. They were proud of their gardens, their trees, their churches, of course, their pure air, their pure water, their pure morals, especially their pure morals. So I think of like Pleasant Town.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were trying to set that up.
But now I'm just picturing everything in black and white.
Yeah. I mean, it was the 1800s, so it was black and white.
Yep.
When Denver was still a dirty, dusty, rambunctious frontier town devoid of trees and other vegetation, early Highland settlers were engaged in more civilized pursuits like planting trees and gardens. While Denver was called the Queen City, Highlands was known as the Garden City of the Plains. Artesian water was discovered by R.L. McCormick while he was boring for coal. This was at a time when many of Denver's residents needed strainers on their taps to filter out small fish and other debris coming from the water.
God.
So they saw this as a huge win for the Highlands to have pure, clean, fresh well water.
It's water and dinner.
That's true. Just look at it that way.
Dinner for your cat, anyway.
I was about to say, it's probably like little minnows, like not the fish you want to eat. Highlands pure air was another important selling point for the town. In fact, while tuberculosis was the country's #1 killer at the time and unpolluted dry air, rest, and good food were the only known remedies, it was only natural that Colorado and Highlands attracted many people, as we've talked about with like Stanley Hotel and others.
Right.
There were numerous sanitariums in Highlands. The largest of which, the Oaks home, was located in Potter Highlands and is near the Lumber Baron Inn. It's a beautiful home as well. It's probably haunted if it was a sanitarium, so we should probably look into that.
I've probably driven past it tons of times.
You would recognize it.
Yeah.
Potter Highlands was laid out with square blocks. This arrangement allowed for houses to face all adjacent streets and to contain a carriage lot in the center of the block. Many blocks still have these communal garages. If you drive through this area, you will see what I am talking about. Many mansions were built in the area.
Yeah. There's some crazy buildings.
Yes, all of these are just gorgeous homes in this area when I drove over there.
Mm-hmm.
And the one we're talking about today, the Lumber Baron Inn, was one of those mansions. It was not known as the Lumber Baron Inn back then. It was just this guy's house that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But the hopes and glories of Highlands were short-lived. There were major transportation difficulties crossing the South Platte into Denver and then climbing up the hill into the Highlands. And these problems combined with an 1893 silver crash strained the town's finances, and it eventually led to a vote by the Highlands citizens in 1896 to annex Highlands to Denver, where it continues to be today. It's just another part of downtown Denver.
Right.
So John Mowat, a Scottish immigrant, arrived in Denver, Colorado in 1873 at the age of 25. He quickly made a name for himself in the lumber industry and eventually owned the Denver-based John Mowat Lumber Company.
Oh, so it's not based on his last name. It's based on what he did?
Yeah, that's why it's called the Lumber Baron Inn.
Interesting.
He was a lumber baron. John used his own sawed lumber from his mills to build over 200 buildings in Denver, transforming the city from a rough mining town into a respectable urban area with fine homes and buildings. Mowat wanted his home, however, to be the best. So he began construction on a lavish mansion for his wife and their 5 children in 1889, and it was completed just 1 year later. The mansion was designed by William Lang, who was a prominent architect of the time, known for his intricate and detailed designs. Lang incorporated elements of the Queen Anne and Victorian architectural styles, resulting in a stunning and unique structure that stood out among all of the other beautiful homes in the area. And it still does when you drive through. This one is very unique. The Mowat Mansion was equal parts home and also a showcase of Mowat's work. He used the finest wood milled at his sawmills to craft the mansion, a variety of woods such as cherry, oak, poplar, sycamore, maple, and walnut. It was a massive 8,500 square foot mansion.
It's pretty big.
Each room featured a different type of wood, and each fireplace was intricately carved with distinct and fine details.
Oh, now I have to go see, though. That's interesting.
Really
different type of wood.
So each room has its own vibe.
Wow.
Feeling. Wood in the dining room had carved rosettes representing the trees used to make all of the other rooms. So it was kind of like a coming together of all the woods, and you can see that today. The dining room is where they host the afternoon tea.
Okay.
And the guest rooms featured private bathrooms and phones, which was
of the time
a very, wealthy thing for the time.
Right.
The third floor of the mansion, which the Mowats utilized to host lavish parties, featured a 20-foot pyramid ceiling and a shining maple floor. It was the largest and grandest house in the neighborhood.
Damn.
But while the family enjoyed their time in the mansion, throwing many parties and events, the Mowat children eventually grew up, moved out, and started families of their own. Nothing really happened eventful while the Mowats lived there. John and his wife eventually moved out too. They went off to San Diego, California in 1906, and the mansion was put up for sale. The Mowat family sold the mansion to Hiram Fowler and his family, who lived there while the location remained an upscale neighborhood. Hiram Fowler was a successful miner, and he was known for his kindness to the neighborhood children. The mansion, I know, that kind of scares me.
You said that the wrong way. I don't know how else you can say it, though.
I think... Well, I'll tell you more. So the mansion's ballroom was used daily as a children's playroom, and kids would all come there together and play with the Fowlers' daughters. They had their own kids, so it wasn't just like a creepy couple inviting kids over. So the Fowlers did have a family of their own, and their daughter had a very intricate, nice doll house, and all the girls in the neighborhood wanted to come over and play with that. They had just built this whole ballroom that had been used as party place, became like the children's play area. So I said that wrong, but he was also a very kind man, not in a creepy way, to the children in the neighborhood, and they all felt welcome. The boys would come over there and they would fly planes around in the space. It was just such a large area, and all the kids enjoyed getting to be there.
Sounds fun.
But over time, the Fowler family faced challenges in maintaining the mansion. It was just a very expensive place to run. 8,500 square feet. I can't imagine what your electric and gas bill would look like.
I know.
So they tried to turn it into a commercial property. They tried raising income to support the mansion as a historical place, but eventually they couldn't keep it anymore, and the decision was made to divide the home into apartments.
Oh.
And I saw a different number here. I saw anywhere from 13 apartments to 23 apartments.
That's a difference.
23 seems like a lot for 8,500 square feet. I don't know how you would have divided that. So 13 was probably more like it.
The bathrooms became apartments.
23.
Yeah.
Some of you get a toilet, some of you do not. I don't know how they would have, fit all that.
Who knows? And is it exactly as it was back then? Today?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it might be now. I think they do restore it here in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, here in a minute, they'll restore it. So, like many historic buildings, the mansion began passing through a number of hands through the decades until we saw the neighborhood beginning to change. The Highlands was not a nice part of Denver for a while.
Okay.
In fact, in the 1970s, it became a very undesirable place to live.
Interesting.
And it was during this time that we see the Mowat Mansion become just a rundown kind of slumlord place, just with really cheap apartments and not fixed up, which is really, really sad for this beautiful home.
Yeah.
It was also during this time that a terrible event would occur, the murder of 2 young women.
Yes.
So we're in the fall of 1970, and 16-year-old runaway Kara Lee Noach was living in a rented room at the tenement building, is what it was known as at that point. And Noach had dropped out of school and run away from home. But on October 11th, she seemingly had a change of heart. She celebrated her 17th birthday at her parents' house and made a bold announcement. In 4 days' time, she would move out of her apartment and resume her high school education. She had already found a job, and she was starting to get her life together.
Oh, wow. Well, she turned it around quickly, it sounded like.
Yeah, she, ran away, had her time on her own, realized how much it costs to live on your own, and decided, you know what, I should get my high school education. But unfortunately, that would never happen. For poor Kara, she would be found dead just 2 days after making that announcement to her parents.
That's sad.
So on October 13th of 1970, 18-year-old Marianne Weaver went to the building, or the Lumber Baron Inn as it is known today, to visit her friend Kara. And she walked in at the worst possible moment.
Oh, no. She was just visiting her?
Yes.
I don't remember that part.
Yeah. She was coming to visit her friend. She opened the door and there was a man in the apartment. And this wasn't a man that Kara had invited in.
Mm-hmm.
He had already raped Kara. And many reports claim that Marianne walked in just in time to witness him murdering her.
Okay.
So we don't know for sure, but she caught him in the act if he was, assaulting her friend still, or he had just murdered her. But whatever happened, she surprised him, and the man turned around and shot 18-year-old Marianne.
Poor girls. So young.
So sad. You're just walking in, expecting to see your friend, and then there's a man there, and it probably happened so fast.
Right.
And she was just shot and killed. Police arrived and they found Kara's body lying naked under the bed. She had been strangled to death.
Oh, under the bed?
Under the bed. And then they found Marianne laying on the floor with the gunshot wound, also dead.
Why would he put her under the bed?
I don't know. It's weird.
I wonder if there are any other murders of girls who ended up under the bed.
I think that is an interesting part of the story. Why would he put her under the bed?
Weird. Okay. Maybe so that she wasn't found right away, and then that girl surprised him?
Maybe he was in the act of putting her under the bed, he was trying to cover up his tracks. That's what we don't know, because Marianne's dead. We don't know what she saw. This is all just speculation at this point. She may have walked in on him, putting her under the bed, covering his tracks or whatever, and then he shot her. But at that point, he fled because he was afraid. So whatever he was in the midst of doing, we don't know. And it's been over 54 years at this point, and the murderer has never been found.
I know that. I do know that.
But it's thought that this tragic and unsolved murder is what has led to paranormal activity that takes place at the Lumber Baron Inn today.
Yeah, they want justice.
Would make sense. These poor girls have never, like I said, gotten their justice.
That's such a long time to not pay for what you've done.
And this was 1970. I think they would have had some kind of forensics.
Yeah.
But who knows? This guy could be someone who got away with many things, or he's just a vagrant that wasn't in the system. I don't know, but
maybe he was the landlord. Have we looked into anybody? I'm sure they did.
I'm sure they did. So by the 1990s, the building was in such terrible shape that the city actually condemned it.
Oh, wow.
So it just continued to deteriorate along with the neighborhood. It's likely that would have been the end of the story after it was condemned had it not been for Walter and Julie Keller, who purchased the property in 1991, and they took on the task of restoring the mansion to its former glory, what it originally was when John Mowat built it.
Okay.
They converted the basement apartments into one large apartment and chose to live there themselves, believing that the neighborhood would eventually change for the better. That was a big gamble for them at the time, but it ended up paying off because this is a very nice neighborhood.
Right.
Multi-million-dollar
Right.
homes here now.
Yes.
It's hard to believe at one point it was a
Condemned.
scary place to live.
Yeah.
After restoring the mansion, the Kellers filled the common areas with antique furniture and added antique beds, bathtubs, showers, and dressers to the guest rooms. They replanted the gardens and added statues, fountains, and other 1890s era decor to the exterior. To ensure the upkeep of the 100-year-old home, the Kellers put the mansion to work. They started a bed and breakfast business called the Lumber Baron Inn.
Oh, so they came up with the name.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's actually the Lumber Baron Inn and Gardens because they offer the garden space that is very beautiful there for weddings and special events as well.
Okay.
They also began a stage theater in the mansion's ballroom, that big third-story area, and it was well supported by the Denver community. So that was another way that they made money to upkeep the mansion.
Neat.
Thankfully, no further tragedies have plagued the Lumber Baron Inn that we are aware of, and it continues to operate today as a successful bed and breakfast. But given its history, many guests and paranormal researchers have come forth with claims that the Lumber Baron Inn may in fact be haunted.
Okay.
It is allegedly considered to be the most haunted place in Denver, but we know none of that shit.
I don't think so.
I think there's some more places that are more haunted.
Mm-hmm.
But there are reports of 6 spirits who continue to stalk its halls.
Oh.
Naturally, 2 of the alleged ghosts that haunt the Lumber Baron Inn are the spirits of Kara Noach and Marianne Weaver.
Mm-hmm.
They have reportedly been seen in the inn's Valentine room, on the stairs, and in the hallway near their room. Guests have reported feeling cold spots and hearing strange noises from unknown sources. Walter Keller even reported similar experiences while he was living there and restoring the inn. He said he would feel neck hairs stand on end and an unnaturally cold gust of wind blowing by him.
Okay.
Other spirits believed to reside in the mansion include a female spirit dressed as a flapper. So she had to have been from the 1920s. Wonder what that story is. Probably another woman who was tortured or killed by a man.
I know. At least it's not a white dress.
They didn't say. They just said she's dressed as a flapper.
Oh, okay. Well,
no, she's not known as the Lady in White or anything. She's been seen in the ballroom.
Because that's where she died.
Probably. She was there for a party. And she got raped and killed in one of the guest rooms, guaranteed.
And stuffed behind something until the party was over.
Yep. And she was missing, but it's the 1920s and you could get away with things. There's a black female maid in a uniform who just is reported to be going about her chores when people see her.
Oh.
There is a male figure thought to be a family member or servant of the Mowat or Fowler families. And then another older authoritative male apparition. I don't know why they say authoritative. Something about him looks, I guess, more
Does he try to boss you around?
I don't know. This man is believed to be a former owner or perhaps an administrator of the business school that at one point operated in the mansion. Okay. So that happened throughout the decades. It was a school at some point. These spirits have made their presence known through a variety of means, including visible appearances, sounds of voices, and even the aroma of pipe tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple paranormal investigation teams have also visited the Lumber Baron Inn, including the team from Spirit Paranormal and the cast of the TV show Ghost Detectives. Between 2 separate investigations, one in 2011 and the other in 2012, Spirit Paranormal claimed to have captured the full name of the person who murdered Kara and Marianne.
Oh, really?
Yes. But they've never released the name publicly. So I don't know if they gave it to the cops. I'm not real sure what happened there, but nothing has come of it.
Okay.
Or maybe they just said that to get viewers.
Probably. We know something you don't know, but we're never going to tell you.
Yeah. In October of 2012, they posted on their Facebook, "Another unbelievable night at the Lumber Baron Inn. If I was not there to see this in person, I would not have believed it. For the 2nd straight year, we received the same name of the killer from the unsolved murder." They said that they received it through the ITC, which is also called a spirit box device.
And yet they still didn't say the name?
No. And a lot of people were like, well, it doesn't really matter because it's unlikely this alleged evidence would even be admissible in a court of law.
Yeah, but you can still look at the man and see if he did
You would
anything else.
think. That's why I'm like, it's obviously not going anywhere. This was 13 years ago and nothing's happened. So
The name was Barney the dinosaur.
it was like John Smith or something that
Right.
like could be a million different people. So that's really all I could find. I looked at multiple sources. Obviously, it has this horrible murder hanging over it. So to me, that means, yeah, it probably is haunted. Those poor girls' souls are trapped there.
Yeah.
And maybe one day we'll have a legitimate psychic or paranormal investigation that happens there. And we do find out who that murderer is. It's been a while. That guy is probably dead at this point, but it'd be nice to know.
Maybe. And it is a town that a lot of people come through. So maybe he's not even from here.
Probably not. And back then in the 1970s, it was kind of a drifter house. It's where runaways were living, probably people with addictions. I don't know.
Who knows? But you can hold out hope.
Yes. And we got to find out who that flapper girl is.
I know.
That one will never get solved, probably, sadly. So today, the Lumber Baron Inn does continue to operate as a bed and breakfast and an event venue. Whether you're coming here to investigate the paranormal stories or you just want to see a beautiful place because it's pretty magnificent, you can stop by.
They do dinners or anything there?
I was actually getting to that. I looked it up. If you are interested in visiting, the cost of rooms range anywhere from about $223 up to $300, depending on what room and the time of year you want to visit. The third floor, I believe, is still used as an event space, the ballroom area. They offer the regular afternoon tea on the weekends, and then they have the tarot tea at certain times. They also do mystery murder dinners, which I think would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I also saw they even had like another fun event, something tied to the Titanic. So, So they do a few different like dress up costumed events that I think would be really fun. So that is my mini episode today. I just wanted to bring you guys a little taste of a local spot.
Cool. I really need to go. I know we constantly talk about it, but a murder mystery dinner would be really fun. I've actually never done one.
I haven't either.
Really?
Yeah, let's do that.
We suck.
This would be the place to do one.
Yes, it would be.
We might actually get visited by someone who has been murdered, though.
I mean, we do have a platform, so maybe they're like, talk to them. And they're girls. We trust the girls.
I know. Let's go to a seance.
I'm too sensitive, though. I'm scared of them. I don't know. It's been a long time. I know that I messed with them when I was a kid. Maybe that's why I'm still haunted.
Probably.
All right, I have the next lab report, and I did choose this one for the title again. And since I had chose one that was about not trusting men, it just stood out. So this one's called Don't Pick Up the Girl.
Okay.
So a little
don't
opposite.
Trust men, don't pick up girls.
I thought I would do both.
Don't trust anyone.
Do not trust anyone.
Don't trust me and Jessica.
Pick up the cat. Pick up the dog.
Trust animals. I don't know. Sometimes they'll bite you too, but
I know it's true.
They'll get over it.
All righty. Hola, senoritas.
Hola.
I love your show. It is a warm cup of coffee on a Sunday morning. I know that isn't when you release your episodes, but that's when I listen. You start off the only relaxing day of my week. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening.
So this happened a few months ago, and honestly, it still freaks me out. I still can't shake the feeling that I barely escaped something bad.
No.
I was driving home from work one night, and it was already pretty late, like around 10 p.m. I live in a pretty quiet area, so the streets were practically empty. It was one of those cold nights where you just want to get home, curl up, and not deal with anything. As I was driving, I see this girl walking on the side of the road. She spotted my car, stopped, and started waving her arms.
Okay.
She looked young, maybe early 20s, and she seemed desperate. I almost didn't stop. I mean, I didn't know her, and who waves down cars in the dark like that? Only in horror movies.
True.
That's true.
The girl from The Grudge.
Oh, God. But I slowed down and rolled down my window to check on her because it was freezing outside, and I knew I wouldn't be able to live with myself once I got home. She walked up to my car, shivering, and asked if I could give her a ride.
Okay.
Said she just needed to go about 10 minutes down the road to meet a friend. I looked at her for a few seconds, looking around my car and outside. Said, I don't know. She said she normally wouldn't ask, but she was freezing. She was bundled up, but it was a lot colder out than she realized when she first started walking. I hesitated at first because you hear stories about this sort of thing, right? She looked harmless enough, though, and it was dark out, and I was heading in that direction. Maybe this would be one of those good deeds and not something that would end badly for me.
Right. We're all trying to get karma. I don't know. I'd be conflicted.
I would too, especially if it was a young girl.
Yes, if it was a young girl and I knew nobody else was around and all of that.
Mm-hmm. You would want to get her out of a bad situation.
Before a man showed up and took advantage of the situation.
Exactly. I figured maybe it was just the decent thing to do. So I unlocked the door and she climbed in. She thanked me a bunch. She said her name was Angie, and that was that. As we started driving, I tried making small talk, but she was kind of quiet. She'd give short answers, and then she'd just stare out the window, looking nervous. After a few minutes, I asked her where exactly we're headed. She said, "Oh, my friend's house is just up ahead. Keep going straight. I don't know the street name, just how to get there."
Okay.
Something about her tone gave me a weird feeling, but I didn't want to overthink it. She pulled out her phone and texted someone. I don't know what it said, although I did try to look. We drove for another couple of minutes when she suddenly told me to pull over by this park. It wasn't a park I knew well, but it was one of those spots people don't go to at night. It's too dark and too empty. I started feeling really uneasy.
Kind of sounds like a trap.
It does. So I said, "I thought you said it was a house, but now this park? Are you sure this is where you're meeting your friend? It's pretty dark out here." She nodded, but didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead. I didn't see any other cars. I asked her again if she was sure. She just said, but didn't make eye contact with me. But I was driving and I pulled into the tiny parking lot and I parked. That's when I noticed her hands. She was fidgeting, like clenching and unclenching her fists. I thought maybe her hands were just cold or thawing, but her breathing had changed too, getting quicker and heavier. I'm telling you, the vibe in the car shifted in a big way, and it was starting to freak me out.
Yeah.
I casually reached for my phone, trying to think of an excuse to leave, kick her out, and peel away. Something. That's when she turned to look at me, finally making eye contact for the first time since she got in the car and quickly said, "You don't mind waiting a minute, right?"
Yes, I do. You need to get out.
My friend's car is right over there. I looked around, and there wasn't a car. Now my instincts were screaming at me that something was wrong. I tried to play it cool, though, and said, "Yeah, sure, but I don't see any car. I don't see anyone." She didn't respond. She just kept staring into the distance like she was waiting for something or someone. I literally snapped my fingers in her face. "Hello?"
Yeah.
Then a bit frantically, she said, "She'll be here soon. You're not going anywhere, right?"
Might be.
It's like she's not all there.
No.
She kind of demanded it and gave me this weird smile. I couldn't tell if she was just trying to act normal or if she knew something I didn't. First it was a house, now this park. She said the car was nearby, but there's no car.
Right.
And now her friend is going to be there soon. My heart was sinking. Shit wasn't adding up. Before I could tell her I was really uncomfortable and needed to leave, I saw headlights coming up behind us. Another car pulled up next to mine, and a girl stepped out. She looked like she knew the girl in my car, but she didn't say a word to me. She just stood there looking between me and the girl like they were waiting for something. They stared at each other, communicating without words, and I was frozen. She sat there for a moment, and then without a word, she opened the door and got out. When she got to my side of the car, she glanced back at me and gave me that same unsettling smile. She walked over to the other girl who hadn't said anything or really even acknowledged me other than staring at me. I didn't know what to do.
Lock your doors. That's what you do.
I hope you did that.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I was supposed to wait for her like she asked. I didn't want to. But next thing I know, she walked up to my window. I rolled it down only partially. She said, "Thanks for the ride. Hope you didn't mind a little detour."
Okay.
I just nodded and said, "Yep."
Bye.
And just like that, they both walked off toward the park and disappeared into the dark. I lost sight of them. I could not see them anymore. Again, you want me to wait out here in the dark? For how long?
I'm gone. I'm out.
I didn't stick around to figure out what the hell it all meant. I sped off, not looking back. Whatever was about to go down, I knew wasn't good. I still have no idea what they were up to or what would have happened if I stayed longer, but I still think about it, how easily I stopped, how easily I let her in. Honestly, never again. But I can't help but wonder, what was her intent with me? Was I supposed to be her savior? Did I leave her stranded? Who was the other girl?
Yeah.
What happened to the house I was supposed to take her to? Maybe there was never a house, but she thought I wouldn't agree to take her to the park if she had asked me.
Yeah.
But if she was going to a park to still be out in the freezing cold, why did she need a ride?
To get there quicker, to be in the freezing cold in the park where there's probably drugs. I don't know.
I mean, that's true. If I had waited, would someone else have shown up?
Probably.
Was I targeted to be abducted? With the way that she was acting, I can't think of anything else. But I think that might have been the case. I just simply can't shake the feeling that I dodged something really bad that night, something really bad, and I may not be here today.
Wow, yeah.
I know that wasn't the craziest story, but it's something I still think about. In a scenario I believe we all think about. Would you pick up a stranded girl on the road? Well, I did and lived to talk about it, but it still wasn't without its horror. Stay safe and stay lucid, Emily.
Well, Emily, I'm glad you're safe.
Yes, me too. I mean, oh my God. And I have thought about that.
Yeah. Like, what would you
I
do?
It's a gut feeling thing, I think.
Right. Yeah. You don't know until you're in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But then what do you do once they're in your car and you start feeling that uneasy feeling? You can't just like pull over and be like, get out. I guess you can. But like, I don't know. Once they're in your car, I'd be afraid, like, especially if she's bundled up, she could have a weapon or.
That's true.
I don't know. It's a hard one because you want to be a good person that helps others, but we also know that there's a lot of people out there, especially maybe on the side of the road, that aren't mentally there, on some kind of drugs.
I know. She said she seemed harmless, so she must have not seemed like a druggie.
Yeah.
I don't know how populous it is where you lived, but
right.
I've thought about if I was in that situation and they didn't have a gun to my head, but I just felt uncomfortable, that I would drive to a store and I would get out of the car.
Yeah, that's what they always say to do is drive towards like a police station or a fire station.
Somewhere where I could get out and there'd be other
public.
people.
Yeah, that's always smart.
Definitely not a dark park.
Nope. I'd be like, I don't think so. How about I'll take you to the supermarket and your friend can come meet us there instead of this dark, scary park.
Yeah, the friend had a car.
Yes, exactly.
That's what does make it weird.
Yeah, definitely my radar would be going off, and I'm glad she just got out of there. I wouldn't have waited around either.
No. Well, thank you for writing in, Emily.
Thank you, Emily. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing your story.
Yes.
So I am going to be reading our next story. So we have 3 this week because we had so many to choose from. So keep bringing those stories in,
please.
Mine has the title, Don't Fuck with Ouija Boards.
Oh, yay.
I saw this and I was like, yes, this got my attention because I was talking to my kids recently and my oldest has a bunch of roommates, or did for a while. And they went to, I think it was Goodwill or Ark, one of the local shops, and bought a Ouija board.
That's scary.
And I was like, please don't use that.
That's not straight out of the factory, honey.
And when I saw this, I was like, okay, I actually already shared this with my child. Don't you worry. And said, don't do it, because this is not I already read through the story. It's a little bit of a scary one. So let's start.
Okay.
Hi there, Lucid ladies. I am really enjoying the show you're bringing each week and the wide array of topics you choose to cover. It is a nice change of pace from just the typical true crime podcasts I have listened to for the past many years.
Good.
I have been a listener now for about 4 months, and I finally got the courage to write in my story.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I know some may not believe me, but this is a true event that occurred, and I am still recovering to this day. I write in to tell others to never doubt the existence of the spirit world and do not take it lightly, as I did when I was a young, dumb teenager.
I mean, aren't we all?
Yeah, we all think it's funny until it's not.
I know.
Guess. My story begins on a Friday night sleepover. I was a sophomore in high school in a country bumpkin, Iowa town about an hour away from Des Moines. We were often bored and looking for things to do. All names, including my own, let's call me Holly, have been changed to protect all of us in current jobs, family life, etc.
Alrighty. Hello, fake Holly.
Hi, Holly. That's not really Holly. It was early October, and my friends and I were getting excited as Halloween drew closer. It was the start of spooky season, our favorite time of year. 2 of my girlfriends, Ella and Lisa, would be spending the night, but my parents also let 2 guy friends come hang out with us until midnight, so Sam and Jake were there as well.
That's a long time.
Till midnight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
She had cool parents.
I guess so.
My parents had a basement area that was a teenage dream. Think something like that 70s show, but 20 years later.
Okay.
Did you ever watch that 70s show?
I did.
I'm trying to think. Just like
not
a couch
that
or something.
Like it was from the 70s?
Well, no, they all hung out in the basement and smoked weed is all I remember.
Oh,
so I think that's what she's saying. We could go down there and be as loud as we wanted, and my parents would be 2 floors up, none the wiser.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like a great place. I would never let my kids do that.
No. That's like 7 hours in the dark. Just kidding. Get it?
7 minutes in
the dark. Heaven.
A little more about my friend group. Ella was the skeptical one, always the voice of reason, the straight A student who had grand ambitions of leaving Iowa for New York City.
Oh, me.
Lisa was my gothy friend, fascinated by the supernatural and obsessed with the craft.
Oh, also me.
You're a mix of both. Sam was a self-proclaimed daredevil type. He liked to push the envelope with everything he did, always performing stupid tricks on his skateboard or BMX bike. He has probably broken just about every bone in his body at some point.
Jeez, knock on some wood. I just can't even hear people talk about it.
I know. Ugh. Jake was the quiet one that kind of just went along with whatever Sam wanted to do, and he was my high school crush.
Aw, you liked the quiet ones.
I guess.
I don't know. She didn't say that, but that's what I'm picturing.
We had that off and on kind of flirtation that never really went anywhere because we were both too shy to make anything happen.
I had a few of those.
I guess that leaves me. I was the one who brought us all together and had the best house for everyone to visit. I was a theater kid, average student, and had no real idea what I wanted to do, still figuring out where I would land in life. Honestly, I still kind of am. My friend Lisa had told me when she arrived that night that she had something special to show us, and around 10 p.m., after we had been hanging out for a while and we knew my parents were upstairs in bed, she announced that she had an idea.
Okay.
She reached in her backpack and pulled out a weathered box that said Ouija. We had all heard stories about Ouija boards, that it could communicate with spirits, and the others that warned not to mess with them, that they could be dangerous. But none of us had seen one in real life or truly believed any of that. And now here we were looking at one in person. I've never seen a Ouija board.
I have.
I've always been afraid of them.
I have played with them. Like, it kind of takes away the terror when you pull it out of the box because you're like, it's just a board.
Well,
But
they
this
sell
plastic
it.
thing.
Yes. Well, if you just get one from like
Target.
Yeah, exactly. That does take away the allure. The board itself was old, yellowed, with the letters worn down in places.
Oh, that is way too used.
Yes, this is like a horror
That's
movie.
not okay.
But the price had been right. Lisa had bought it from a thrift store for a few bucks when she visited Des Moines with her grandma.
Oh, so just like your kid.
I know. That's why I saw this and I was like, hey, let's not play with the thrift store Ouija board.
No.
That's like where it starts.
Go have them go bury it out in the middle of nowhere.
My
somewhere.
kid also bought this creepy ass doll because
What?
let me just
you
tell
do
you.
not buy dolls from thrift stores.
And you wind it up and it sings a song and it stops halfway through. They named her Louise and she's creepy as fuck. My kid was living in my house for a while and they had that fucking doll in my house.
I was going to say, at least they don't live there anymore, but it sounds like she had a moment there.
I told them, I was like, get that fucking doll out of my house.
It's ridiculous.
So it's just par for the course with my child. Anyways.
Taking risks.
At first, we just kind of joked around about the Ouija board. We thought it would be fun to mess with, but we weren't really expecting anything out of the ordinary. After all, it was just a game, right? So I found some candles. We kept around the basement for power outages. We turned off the lights and cleared the coffee table of all the pizza scraps and plates. We then sat down crisscross on the ground around the table and placed our fingers on the planchette that came with the board. Ella was the first to speak, her voice teasing, "Hi, ghosties. Let us know if you want to speak with us." Nothing happened, just as we expected. We then began rapid firing questions, many stupid yes or no ones about other classmates in school, or if a boy or girl liked us, or things about our teachers, just typical yes or no questions. But then Lisa got a serious look on her face and said, "This isn't how we are supposed to do this. Let's be serious and focus our energy, close our eyes, and believe that there could actually be a spirit we want to contact." And so after some more giggling, we did settle down, and Lisa began speaking softly. "Is there anyone here that wishes to speak with us?" And I swear we felt an energy shift and almost a breeze coming into the room. My eyes were closed, but I imagined one of the flames of the candles would be blowing sideways. The planchette moved. Slowly, almost imperceptibly. Ella snatched her fingers back, laughing. Okay, who's messing with it?
Of course. This is like the same experience everyone has had.
Yes, this is, typical.
Stop
I've never had this.
Stop moving it.
Sam grinned mischievously. Maybe we actually have a ghost here. Ooh. The planchette moved again, more deliberately this time, gliding toward the word yes.
Okay.
The room fell silent. "What the hell?" Jake whispered. He seemed very curious, maybe a little scared. He was like, "That wasn't us." Ella, my skeptical friend, began feeling a little uneasy. She said, "Okay, now I'm a little freaked out. Who's doing this?" Nobody answered. We all stared at the board, waiting as though expecting it to move again. Me, the most easily frightened of the group, was the first to break the silence. "Okay, let's just stop. It's not cool anymore." But Lisa, she was intrigued and she ignored me and she said, "No, wait, let's ask more questions. I want to know who's here." So she continued asking questions, some serious, some ridiculous. The planchette moved each time, and this is where it got really creepy. Began spelling out messages like, "I'm lost.
Oh.
I want to play."
Ooh.
And then finally it said, "Find me."
No.
I was done. This wasn't fun anymore. What had begun as a game now felt more real and maybe a little sinister. Lisa's excitement was growing. She was the only one who didn't seem to notice the rest of us were a little freaked out.
Oh,
Go
yeah,
figure.
'cause she's your witchy friend.
She's getting the big eyes like the girl in the Craft.
Yeah.
But then something happened that none of us expected. The planchette jerked violently, sliding across the board faster than any of us could follow, spelling out the word help.
So it has to be two.
To what?
Maybe it's a kid or a demon. Everything it's said so far sounds like someone who needs help, except the play with me.
Right. You never know what you're conjuring up, right? Isn't that the whole, I don't know. I don't like this.
You're going to leave me alone after this, too. I feel like I don't need a Ouija board for shit to happen to me.
No.
So I feel like we're conjuring something up right now.
You already played with the Ouija board. It's already there.
Oh, my God.
Everyone froze. The room felt colder, the air thick with the weight of something we didn't quite understand. For a moment, no one spoke. Even Lisa, who had been the most eager to continue, looked unsettled. Jake was the first to speak. That's it. We just need to stop right now. Sam, trying to play it cool, stood up and said, yeah, let's go. It's just a game anyways.
Time for spin the bottle.
Exactly. Let's start making out instead. But Ella wasn't so sure. She said, maybe we should try and help or close a portal. I don't know. Something.
Yeah, you can't just leave it. You have to say goodbye.
Do you? I don't know.
Yeah, that's why there's a goodbye.
Oh, you say goodbye to the Ouija board?
You have to close the Ouija board. You have to say goodbye.
Okay. I did not know that. Before she could finish her thought, a loud thud echoed from right above our heads in the kitchen, a noise like something heavy falling on the floor. I let out a little surprised squeak. It was now 11 p.m. My parents should not be up. They were the type that passed out religiously at 10 p.m. every night while watching Jay Leno.
Oh, Jay Leno.
My parents used to love Jay Leno. I forgot about him. I ran upstairs with Ella close behind me just to make sure, and eerily, there was nothing in the kitchen. No sign of what could have fallen to make such a loud thud, and definitely no parents. We didn't have any family pets at the time, so no chance of a dog or cat wreaking havoc either.
It's Daniel LaPlante.
Probably. Wait, where was this? Wasn't he in Iowa? Was he in Iowa?
No, he was in Massachusetts.
Now, oh my God, you just made me think it's a Frogger.
Oh no.
It's a new term. When I came back downstairs to tell everyone I couldn't explain what the sound was, I returned to a completely dark basement. I called out to the others asking what had happened, and they told me that all the candles, the four I had lit, went out together in one fell swoop.
Ooh.
They were standing in the dark shaking. Lisa said we had contacted something, and she continued to speak softly to the spirit, inviting it not to be afraid and that we were there to help.
He's like, I'm not afraid of you. You should be afraid of me.
He's like, be afraid of me. Jake and Sam decided it was probably time for them to get the hell out of there.
The boys leave.
Yeah.
The girls stay and deal with it.
Even though they could have stayed for another 45 minutes. I think they were freaked out and didn't want to stick around to be seen as scaredy cats.
No hands are going up any shirts tonight.
Nope. They're like, fuck that. I'll feel a boob later. So I turned on the light switch by the stairs and we cleaned up the basement, putting the Ouija board back in the weathered box it came out of. The boys hugged us all goodbye, and me, Ella, and Lisa went upstairs to my bedroom. Originally, we had planned to sleep in the basement, but we were all a little spooked out now and didn't want to be down there or near the Ouija board at this point.
Yeah.
As we were about to drift off to sleep, I heard Lisa humming softly to herself.
Your Lisa friend is scary.
She's the one that brought this like demon possessed Ouija.
Maybe it called to her at the thrift store.
It might have.
It made her buy it.
I didn't think about that.
It was already connected to her.
I whispered out to her, "Are you okay, Lisa? That was a little freaky down there." And she said, "All will be revealed, but for now we sleep."
Oh boy.
What the fuck?
She's possessed.
Okay, I know she's a little dramatic, but that did seem odd. She then rolled over and didn't speak to me again, so I assumed she was sleeping, and I did the same. That's weird. Days passed, and the experience quickly faded into the background of our teenage lives. We didn't really talk about the Ouija board event again, and if it ever came up at the lunch table, we would kind of laugh it off. But I can say something changed that night with Lisa.
Oh, no.
She was never the same. She seemed different, more distant, kind of head in the clouds.
Withdrawing.
She didn't laugh as often or engage like she had before. I invited her over to stay the night, but she would politely decline. And for one reason or another, our friendship just kind of seemed to drop off.
Oh.
I would like to say it was just because we were both busy. I was in several theater productions that year, and she was 2 years older and prepping for her SATs and thinking about next steps after high school. But I did notice that Lisa seemed to be more of a solo act from everyone in her life. She was missing school. She began going home at lunchtime instead of sitting with friends like before. I was concerned. I tried reaching out a few times again to hang out, but she was always busy with some kind of family thing. I began to wonder if there was something more at play, thinking back to how Lisa acted the night of my sleepover. Was it possible something, whatever entity we invited in that night, had become attached to Lisa?
I think so.
About 6 months after our Ouija board experience, Ella came racing up to me at my school locker. Lisa was in the hospital after her parents had found her collapsed in her room, shaking. They thought she was having a seizure. We had not been as close as we once were, but I still loved Lisa and was very worried. Ella and I made plans to go visit her after school let out, which we did. When I walked into the hospital room and saw Lisa laying there in the bed in her hospital gown with no makeup on, I realized how thin and frail she actually looked.
Oh no, definitely a demon.
Sounds like it. She had dark circles under her eyes and her face looked sunken in, and she looked scared to me.
Oh.
I hugged her close and I told her I was so sorry. Life had gotten in the way and I had been a shitty friend. I was so happy to see her, and she began crying into my shoulder. Ella embraced her as well, and we would spend the next couple of hours listening to her tell a truly terrifying story.
Oh no. Okay.
She told us how her life had become a walking nightmare. Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed her home that night we brought out the Ouija board. At first it was small things, noises in the dark, shadows flickering in the corner of her eye. Then she started having dreams. Horrible dreams where she was trapped in an endless maze of dark rooms, each one more suffocating than the last. In her dreams, she heard whispers, soft, pleading voices that seemed to come from nowhere, begging her to find them. Some dark figure haunted her dreams and would appear in the corners of her vision, following her during the day and whispering her name.
Oh.
She believed we had opened something that night, something that had followed her home and would not let her go. We had played with forces that we didn't understand, and now she was paying the price. The worst part was the reflection in the mirror. At first, Lisa thought it was just the poor lighting in her room, but the more she looked, the more she noticed something. Sometimes when she was alone, the reflection of her face would change.
Ooh.
Her expression twisted in fear or pain, even though she didn't feel that way.
Oh.
Other times she saw someone standing behind her.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like a shadow behind her or something.
I feel like I've seen things like this on that show, Haunted. I don't know if you've ever watched that. Like, I've heard stories like this before. Like
your face changing?
Or, yeah, it's distorting in the mirror. It's like, and also just somebody behind you.
I mean, I've seen it in movies where like someone goes to look in the mirror and their face does something that they're not doing.
Yeah. She tried to ignore it, to tell herself it was just stress or her imagination running wild, but the dreams continued to grow worse and the feelings of being watched never stopped. Eventually, she couldn't even sleep without the sense of a presence lingering in the dark.
That's rough. And I know it.
One night, after weeks of sleeplessness, Lisa decided she couldn't take it anymore. She drug out the Ouija board from the back of her closet where she had hidden it and set it up in her bedroom. She placed her fingers lightly on the planchette and whispered, "Is anyone here?" For a moment, nothing happened, but then the planchette began to move. She tried to stop it, but it wouldn't stop. The planchette spelled out the word run. She said the next moment the lights flickered and the room grew darker at the same time, and a figure emerged from the shadows, tall, dark, and indistinct. It had no face, but she could feel its presence watching her and waiting. It began to whisper her name, and she said it sounded like the whispers were coming from everywhere, and then it lunged at her. She said she woke up with a gasp, her heart racing, her body drenched in sweat, and found herself in the hospital room, surrounded by doctors.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She was so confused. Had it all been a dream?
Is it in her now?
I don't know. As she recounted this with trembling in her voice and shaky hands, I knew she was being 100% truthful. She told me she felt like her parents would never believe this story. The doctors were running all kinds of tests now, trying to account for her just passing out. They were worried something was wrong with her heart or her brain, but all of the tests would come back normal. Ella and I knew what was wrong, and I think Lisa knew too. She was haunted, and the help she needed would not come from a hospital. I would like to tell you all that things would get better for Lisa, but sadly, I cannot. Instead, this is truly a cautionary tale to all of you. Do not fuck with Ouija boards. Lisa would come home from the hospital, and we would rekindle our friendship until she left for college in Nebraska. She was never the same. She just seemed like a shell of what old Lisa used to be. The doctors put her on antidepressants for anxiety, and that did seem to numb her. She took sleeping pills at nights and other sedative-type pills as needed. She never recovered, and I think up until her very last day here on Earth, she was haunted. At the age of only 19, Lisa was driving home from college one weekend to visit her family back in Iowa. On the way, they believe she fell asleep and her car drifted off the road at 70 miles per hour.
Oh, man.
My only hope is that she died quickly and she didn't see it coming, that she remained asleep. But I cannot shake the feeling that it was something far more sinister.
Yeah.
That she looked in her rearview mirror and saw a dark shadow in the back seat of her car that maybe whispered her name again.
And she lost control.
So my story is not a happy one.
No.
I regret ever playing with that Ouija board. Maybe my friend Lisa would be here today if we had not.
Well, don't hold it against yourself. She was the one that brought it.
Right. And like you said, maybe it called to her. Maybe this was like,
Yeah.
what do they call it? It's like a canon event.
Yeah. She was in that store and something about it.
Mm-hmm.
She had to buy it. Whether you played with her or not, it sounds like she would have played with it either way.
Yeah, she may have done it on herself.
It might have even happened before you guys played together at all.
Yeah, we don't know. She may have already been haunted. So I don't know if she was already drawn to the supernatural.
Yep.
The occult is a scary thing.
Yeah, you have to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
The spirit world is real. I didn't always believe in it myself, but I do now. Thank you, ladies, for bringing Lucid Lab podcast to us every week and for giving me a chance to share Lisa's story.
Well, thank you. And I'm sorry Lisa's gone.
That sucks.
It's really sad.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
And it's probably hard for you because you're the only one who kind of feels like you really know what happened in her life in the end.
Yeah. I wonder if she talks to her other friends. I'm guessing they all talked about it. I know Ella was there in the hospital. I'm wondering if the boys know. I would assume.
I don't know.
She said she didn't want to tell their name, so I'd assume they all know.
Okay.
I don't know. But I'm sorry, Holly, that you had this tragic interaction. And I think this just confirms to me, and I've seen other stories over the years about Ouija boards, that I don't want to fuck with them for sure.
You literally just asked me to do it with you.
When did I ask you to do that?
At the beginning of this episode.
I've been drinking wine. We don't usually drink wine when we do the podcast, but we are today.
Not
because
anymore,
we're still recovering from the election.
Yeah, and I said, fuck it.
I would call a demon if it would go after Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Can we make it do our bidding?
But they're already possessed by demons. So what is that going to do?
You're right. And I've seen those movies where people try to harness demons and it backfires because you can't trust a demon.
Nope, you can't. They're liars.
They're assholes. Who would have known?
Oh my God.
Sounds like Lisa found that.
What, an asshole Donald Trump spirit?
Something maybe worse or same. Could be the same spirit that now haunts Donald Trump. I don't know.
Well, I hope that she's not stuck and she was released somehow from her living nightmare.
Yeah, I feel like maybe this was, in a way, a release. And I hope her family is recovering. And
that's young.
19.
I'm sorry, Lisa and Holly and all of you that I don't know your names, but you know that we care.
Yes, we do.
So
Thank you.
Thank you for writing in. And I guess I will end this episode with my mini episode.
And it's a very uplifting one, I'm sure, right?
It is not uplifting at all.
Okay, never mind.
I am covering the heartbreaking case of Chandler Grafner.
Okay.
A 7-year-old boy who died in foster care in Denver in 2007. It's a short story with not a ton of details, but it was a horrible situation. And the reason why I'm covering it is because I have multiple connections to it.
Okay.
I did not know Chandler personally, but it is something I have never been able to forget or let go of because it happened where I lived at the time in my apartment building.
Oh, shit.
When I first moved to Denver, when I was 18 years old, I moved into these apartments off of Tamarack and Hampton.
Okay.
And if you know the area, then you'll know the apartments because they're the only ones right there. I lived there for 3 years. It was my starting point here in Colorado. I think I've talked about this, but I've always had a love-hate relationship with apartments. Many of us don't have a choice.
All of us do, yeah.
But it always gives me the shivers to think about all that goes down in apartments. All of the different families, all of the situations happening around you that you are unaware of. And we just did the story about the girl in the apartment. another example.
Well, it's just like a conglomeration of so many people and so many different stories and backgrounds and crazy.
Like all these good people living amongst the bad.
Right. Just like America.
I know. I know. I try not to think about it, but when I do, I realize how scary it really is.
Yeah.
Because you have your own space, but you're putting your safety in the hands of strangers. Strangers that can cause fires.
That's my biggest worry.
Have guns and might get in fights and they come through your walls.
True.
Theft, whatever. But most of all, it's terrifying to think of all of the abuse that is happening behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
I lie awake thinking about it at night sometimes. And my fear of this started with what happened to this little boy.
Okay.
Before this, I was naive. I was still a teenager.
Right.
I never imagined the horror of something like this happening so close by. When the news came out, I was shocked. It happened in my building.
Oh, wow.
Units away from me. And I had no idea. I often wonder if I could have done something myself. So I really feel the girl.
In the first story,
I
yeah.
do. If I had been more observant. But I know there's nothing I could have done because I don't think I ever saw the children.
And you were so young. You're not like brave enough, I feel like, at that age sometimes.
Well, I think part of it was that I was very blinded to bad shit happening. Like I didn't believe in it. You know, I didn't know how prevalent it was just around every corner. I didn't know that yet.
You weren't as jaded as we are today.
I guess. Yes, that's the case.
You're a wide-eyed little Jessica.
Very true. And I didn't see the children, so I didn't know to question this particular couple.
Right.
All right. So Chandler was born April 12th, 2000 to Christina Grafner and Joshua Norris. His early life was marked by instability as his mother struggled with substance abuse.
Okay.
Joshua never had custody of Chandler. It wasn't a long relationship between them, and he wasn't really in Chandler's life.
Okay.
He was in the Army, and he was stationed elsewhere for years. I'm not sure where, but it wasn't here in Colorado.
Okay.
Chandler also had a younger brother by 2 years from another relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and his name was Dominic.
Okay.
In 2004, when Chandler was 4, his mother lost custody due to her ongoing drug problems.
Yeah.
After being removed from his mother's custody, Chandler's care situation remained quite unstable. He was described as having a revolving door of unconventional living situations.
So sad.
I know, it's
Heartbreaking.
it sucks.
Like the system it's broken.
I thought about this story recently. That's why it came to mind after I did the Hart family.
Yeah, it does sound similar.
You know, there's just different points throughout the year that I think back on this little boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what his life was like during those first 4 years, but at some point between 2004 and 2006, Chandler was placed in the care of his maternal grandmother, Sandra Younger.
Okay.
This arrangement didn't last long. In 2006, she became unable to care for him. I'm not sure why. I do have a little bit of a theory, which I'll come to later. Rather than returning him to the foster system, she made the fateful decision to place Chandler with his younger brother's father, John Phillips, and his girlfriend, Sarah Berry.
Okay.
John was 26 and Sarah was 21 at the time. While they were not officially designated as foster parents by the state, it was an informal agreement.
Okay.
The judge awarded custody of both Chandler and Dominic to John Phillips. I'm not sure what John did for work, but Sarah was a teacher's aide at Home Elementary, where Chandler attended school.
Okay.
What I didn't know at the time is that school is just a couple streets away from the apartments.
Okay.
Neither John nor Sarah had any previous criminal history.
They never do.
It makes it very difficult.
Actually, sometimes they do, but and they still give them. Yeah. Anyways.
This informal arrangement quickly turned into a nightmare for young Chandler. Over the next year, John and Sarah subjected Chandler to horrific abuse and neglect.
I don't understand it.
They kept him locked in a small closet for hours on end, denying him food and water. Wow. Neighbors reported hearing screaming and crying coming from the apartment, but nothing was done.
Oh.
I was not one of these people. I do not remember hearing screaming and crying, but at the same time, I worked a lot. I had like 3 to 4 gigs at the time, so I was never home.
Right.
Ever. I think I maybe worked like 100 hours a week.
Yeah.
Like I was just
trying
never
to make
there.
it.
Yeah. But there were signs. All the signs were there. One of the teachers at Home Elementary School, which is fucked up because this is where Sarah works.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Sarah worked at Home Elementary the entire time because some of the teachers reported what was happening. So I wouldn't think so. It's just an odd situation. I know one of the teachers at Home Elementary School reported signs of abuse and neglect multiple times to the state.
Okay.
On January 17th, 2007, Chandler showed up at school with visible injuries.
Okay.
He had a very bruised and swollen right ear and a bump on his head, and he had red marks on his neck.
Oh.
Chandler told the assistant principal at his school that his daddy put him in the shower and slapped him in the ear over and over again.
Ew. What? Like, who thinks of these things?
The assistant principal reported the suspected abuse to the Denver County Department of Human Services. And on January 18th, 2007, an intake worker from DCDHS began an investigation. They attempted to contact Chandler at school, but he was kept home that day by John and Sarah. So on January 20th, 2007, at the request of DCDHS, Chandler was removed from their home by Denver police.
Good.
An emergency caseworker met with Chandler and documented his injuries as non-accidental trauma.
Okay.
But despite this, despite these reports and investigations and having him in their care, the case was ultimately closed with a finding that the allegation of abuse was unfounded.
What the fuck?
And he was returned to them.
Oh my God. Like,
absolutely ridiculous.
How does this happen? They failed this child.
They truly failed this child. After this, Chandler's school attendance dwindled. When school officials tried to contact John about this absence, he told them that they were, quote, having family problems and that Chandler was going to be transferring schools.
Okay.
He was then withdrawn officially from Home Elementary School on March 9th, 2007. The teacher, once again, didn't feel good about any of it. Thank God for this teacher.
Yeah.
I just wish they'd listened to her.
They never,
The teacher reported his many absences and official withdrawal to authorities on April 17th, 2007.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Dominic was also in school. He was 5, so there's a chance it was either way. And I'm not sure if there was any abuse towards him. There isn't much information about him available because he is or was part of the foster system after this.
Okay.
So they don't
talk about it.
That's not available.
Yeah.
But I do remember when this happened that he certainly wasn't the focus of the abuse because he was the biological son.
Yeah. They always choose the one to focus on, unfortunately.
Between January 20th, 2007, when they initially took him away but then gave him back, and April 17th of 2007, when the teacher reported his withdrawal from school, DCDHS received at least 4 written complaints about abuse or neglect involving Chandler.
Wow.
Margaret Booker, head of investigation of child maltreatment and intake services at DCDHS, was responsible for investigating claims related to child maltreatment and deciding which cases merited further investigation. Mary Piegler, a case record supervisor at DCDHS, oversaw Chandler's case file. Neither Booker nor Piegler conducted any investigation into the April 17th referral. The referral was immediately dismissed, even though he had been taken by police from John and Sarah before. No one checked on him.
That makes me so angry.
And less than 3 weeks later, on May 6th, paramedics were called to John and Sarah's apartment where they found Chandler unresponsive.
Oh my God.
He was rushed to the hospital but was pronounced dead shortly after that. An autopsy revealed that Chandler had died from severe dehydration and starvation.
Oh my God.
He weighed only 34 pounds, and his body was covered in bruises and abrasions. The details that emerged about Chandler's final months were horrifying. He was kept in a linen closet as punishment.
Oh my God, there's no room in a linen closet.
Forcing to sleep on the small floor and soil himself. If he was lucky, they stuffed a cat pan in there.
Oh my God.
They withheld food and water, slowly starving him to death. Dominic, his brother, was not allowed to help him or he would get in trouble. All the while, they continued to cash his welfare checks that were meant for his care.
Wow, this is evil.
Both John and Sarah were arrested and charged with first-degree murder.
Good.
Dominic was placed in foster care.
Not good. I mean, probably good.
I hope
hard.
so.
Like,
I hope. In separate trials in 2008, they were both convicted and sentenced to life in prison.
Amazing. Way to go, Colorado.
The judge called it one of the most horrific child abuse cases he had ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
In the aftermath of Chandler's death, his biological parents filed for a federal lawsuit against Denver Human Services. They alleged that social workers had failed to properly investigate reports of abuse and neglect in the months leading up to Chandler's death.
And they are correct.
Which is true. In 2011, a federal judge ruled that the two employees of DCDHS, Margaret Booker and Mary Piegler, could be sued for their alleged negligence in handling his case, and the suit eventually settled for $1.5 million in 2011.
Wow.
So I mentioned I had multiple connections.
Right.
So his grandmother, Sandra, I met her.
Okay.
After Chandler's death that same year, we were looking for a condo, our townhouse to buy. And one townhome up for sale happened to be hers.
Interesting.
We didn't know it at the time, but we went there, met her, and toured the house. There were pictures and newspaper cutouts of Chandler everywhere.
Wow.
She was still grieving.
Of course, forever.
I still don't know why Chandler did not stay with her, but I think it's because, she had her own issues too.
Mm-hmm.
The townhouse was not really tourable, to be honest. She was a bit of a hoarder.
Okay.
So that's why I think
that makes sense.
Happened. It was kind of hard to walk around.
Yeah.
And she must have had 40 to 50 dolls all over that house in every room. I'm sure she loved him, especially with the feeling I had from her, but the home itself was just not somewhere I could see a child. But I guarantee he would have been safer with her.
Would have been better than a linen closet.
And this is what we see happen so many times. They're removed from situations because it's not perfect.
Right. But they were loved. If they're in a loving situation.
What does it matter if she has too many dolls?
Right.
It's her grandson. And if she's not abusing him, leave them be.
She would have fed him.
Exactly.
And not beaten him.
And instead, they're turned over to abusers. I mean, I understand we don't know that they're abusers yet, but he was not his biological father. He took responsibility for a child that was not his.
It's just so disappointing because I'm sure when the grandmother chose them, she's like, but he has a girlfriend and the woman will help. And
I know.
You can't trust people to be good, unfortunately, if you don't know them really, really well.
Yeah, it just sucks.
And I'm sure she has guilt over that.
Oh, I know she does. Yeah. What happened to him is among the most notorious child deaths in our history here in Colorado. So tragic, it led to a governor's review of child abuse. It led to reforms in Colorado's child welfare system, including increased oversight and accountability measures.
Good.
A law was passed requiring social workers to interview children in abuse investigations rather than just speaking to the adults involved, which seems like a pretty fucking obvious thing to do.
Yes.
I don't know why you have to put it in the law.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, sure, it doesn't mean that the children are going to say anything to you, but they might.
You can see, but then you can look at their body language and other things.
I mean, you expect the abusers to say, yeah, I'm abusing them.
They're never gonna.
Silly.
In case you were wondering, they're probably not gonna.
His story continues to be used in social work training to emphasize the importance of thorough investigations and follow-up in suspected abuse cases. You can't just write it off. But I found an interesting number. I couldn't find a recent one. In the 5 years after his death, so up from 2007 to 2012, 43 Colorado children died from abuse or neglect after entering the child welfare program, with every death marked by a policy violation or concern in how the case was handled.
So it didn't stop anything.
No. We continue to fail the children of this state. I don't know recent numbers, but
I hope they're better, but
I hope. I mean,
it's an overtaxed system.
I know.
We don't have enough money to pay the social workers. And therefore we don't have enough workers. And I get it. They have a high caseload, and I don't know what the solution is. Well, I know what the solution is. We need to tax billionaires, but that's not here nor there.
There should be a world lottery system. If you make over a certain amount of money, your name has to go into a set pool. And if your name is drawn, your wealth, you're left with, I don't know, 20 million.
Right.
Your wealth is distributed across the world for causes.
Could you imagine how much better
every
the world
year
would be
if we could do that?
All the funding that is needed to solve all of these social problems is sitting in fucking, I always bringing up Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk.
He'll never
the
be able
Walmart
to spend
family,
that.
all of these people, they can never spend it in like multiple lifetimes, and it's just sitting there when it could be doing good and helping these poor fucking children. And
they don't care. They don't care.
They're evil
because
demons.
Once they've done everything they can and they spent all they can all over the world in every type of scenario that they can think of, there's nothing left for them to do. They're so fucking bored that all they can do is meddle and shit. That's their only form of entertainment.
And now they're meddling in everyone's lives, and they're causing people to die every day.
I know.
So yeah, anyways, that is the solution. We have to tax the billionaires, which we will not be doing in America now because Donald Trump is president, but whatever.
And young children
are going to die.
Chandler would have turned 24 this year, but he will remain forever 7 years old.
So sad, so tragic, so unnecessary.
So tragic. May he rest in peace. We failed him. Everybody failed him. And he is just one of countless stories like this. And I think I'll just always come back to tell these stories because they're the forgotten ones here.
They are.
So much of the time. So I've wanted to talk about him for a little bit because I know you're probably never going to hear this story anywhere else. It's literally specific to here and from a time that no one remembers, but I was connected to it. So I still think of that little boy.
Yeah.
And this episode turned out to be way more depressing than I imagined our lab reports to be.
Yeah, usually we have at least one happy episode. I think it's going with the vibe.
I guess so.
We're sad. You're sad because we're getting sad stories. And I was trying to do a haunted place. I didn't know that it involved the murder of young girls. Sorry.
We always think that hauntings are going to be a fun topic, but there's a reason why they're haunted, Kendra.
You're right. It's not usually good.
No. But we still hope that you enjoyed the episode.
I mean, you like the darker things or you wouldn't be here. So
I know. Thank you.
Thank you for commiserating with us.
And being miserable.
And thank you for sending in your stories.
If you have any, please send those to lucidlabpodcast@gmail.com.
And we also welcome any ideas for mini or regular episodes to that email as well.
Yes.
We are on social media on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Lucid Lab Podcast, one word. And we'll be back next Tuesday with a new episode,
which is also horrible, but
horrible and depressing. Come back for more.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys. Stay lucid.
Bye.
Goodbye.